Chapter 9. The Game Made. While Sidney Carton and the sheep of the prisons were in the adjoining dark room, speaking so low that not a sound was heard, Mr. Lorry looked at Jerry in considerable doubt and mistrust. That honest tradesman manner of receiving the look did not inspire confidence. He changed the leg on which he rested as often as if he had 50 of those limbs, and were trying them all. He examined his fingernails with a very questionable closeness of attention, and whenever Mr. Lorry's eye caught his, he was taken with that peculiar kind of short cough requiring the hollow of a hand before it, which is seldom, if ever, known to be an infirmity attendant on perfect openness of character. "Jerry," said Mr. Lorry, "come here." Mr. Cruncher came forward sideways with one of his shoulders in advance of him. "What have you been besides a messenger?" After some cogitation, accompanied with an intent look at his patron, Mr. Cruncher conceived the luminous idea of replying, "Agricultural character." "My mind misgives me much," said Mr. Lorry, angrily shaking a forefinger at him, "that you have used the respectable and great house of Tellson's as a blind, and that you have had an unlawful occupation of an infamous description. If you have, don't expect me to befriend you when you get back to England. If you have, don't expect me to keep your secret. Tellson's shall not be imposed upon." So here Mr. Lorry is very angry. His entire life has been dedicated to Tellson's. The respect and the reputation of Tellson's is always foremost in Mr. Lorry's mind. So the idea that he has employed Jerry Cruncher and that Jerry Cruncher has used Tellson's Bank almost like a cover story for this illegal activity is just beyond anything that Mr. Lorry is willing to deal with. And so he basically tells him, he's like, "Look, I'm not your friend anymore. I'm not going to help you out. I'm not going to keep your secret. You're no longer employed with Tellson's once we get back to England." So he's very, very upset. And Jerry Cruncher knew that he would be. Picking up with "I hope." "I hope, sir," pleaded the abashed Mr. Cruncher, "that a gentleman like yourself, what I've had the honor of odd job until I'm gray at it, would think twice about harming of me, even if it was so. I don't say it was, but even if it was. And which it is to be took into account that if it was, it wouldn't even then be all one side. There'd be two sides to it. There might be medical doctors at the present hour a picking up their guineas where honest tradesmen don't pick up his fardens. Fardens! No, nor yet his half-fardens. Half-fardens! No, nor yet his quarter, a banking away like smoke at Tellson's, and a cocking their medical eyes at the tradesmen on the sly, a going in and going out to their own carriages, equally like smoke, if not more so. Well, that'd be imposing too on Tellson's, for you cannot sarse the goose and not the gander. And here's Mr. Cruncher, or leastways was in the old England times, and would be tomorrow if cause given, a flopping against the business to that degree as is ruinating, stark ruinating. Whereas the medical doctors' wives don't flop, catch 'em at it. Or if they flop, their flopping goes in favor of more patients, and how can you rightly have one without the other? Then what with undertakers, and what with parish clerks, and what with sextons, and what with private watchmen, all awarish and all in on it. A man wouldn't get much by it even if it was so, and what little a man did get would never prosper with him, Mr. Lorry. He'd never have no good of it. He'd want all along to be out of the line. If he could see his way out being once in, even if it was so. So here Jerry Cruncher makes an actually pretty eloquent argument. He's saying, I'm not telling you that I did do it, but if I did do it, who do you think I was doing it for? The doctors need these cadavers. We sell them these cadavers for pennies on the dollar, basically. We're not getting very much out of this. And then the doctors do it, and they're making way more money doing what they're doing. And Tellson's doesn't have a problem taking their money and holding it in their banks. So why would Tellson's have a problem with me doing it, working for them, and not a problem with their customers doing it and putting the money they make through this trade into the bank? So he makes a pretty good point here. "Ugh," cried Mr. Lorry, rather relenting. "Nevertheless, I am shocked at the sight of you. Now, what I would humbly offer to you, sir, pursued Mr. Cruncher, even if it is so, which I don't say it is, don't prevaricate, said Mr. Lorry. No, I will not, sir, returned Mr. Cruncher, as if nothing were further from his thoughts or practice, which I don't say it is. What I would humbly offer to you, sir, would be this. Upon that there stool at that there bar sits that there boy of mine, brought up and growed up to be a man what will errand you, message you, general light job you, till your heels is where your head is, if such should be your wishes. So here Jerry offers his son. He's like, look, okay, if you're going to fire me, fire me. But my son knows how to do this. He's been sitting there with me this whole time. Let him take over my job. If it was so, which I still don't say it is, for I will not prevaricate to you, sir, let that there boy keep his father's place and take care of his mother. Don't blow upon that boy's father. Do not do it, sir, and let that father go into the line of the regular digging, and make amends for what he would have undug, if it was so, by digging of 'em in with a will, and with convictions respecting the further keeping of 'em safe. So here he says, what I will do to make amends for the crimes that I have committed is I will go and work for a cemetery, and I will dig holes to put caskets in, and I'll protect them from being dug up. So that's his way of saying, don't turn me into the cops, don't turn me into the police, let me make amends on my own. That, Mr. Lorry, said Mr. Cruncher, wiping his forehead with his arm, as an announcement that he had arrived at the peroration of his discourse, is what I would respectfully offer to you, sir. A man don't see all this here going on dreadful round him, in the way of subjects without heads, dear me, plentiful enough for to bring the price down to porterage, and hardly that, without having his serious thoughts of things. And these here would be mine if it was so, entreating of you fur to bear in mind that what I said just now, I up and said in a good cause when I might have kept it back. So here he says, I didn't have to let y'all know that Roger Sly wasn't in that casket. I knew what I was getting into when I said it, and I hope that you'll take into consideration the fact that I put myself at risk by saying that, and allow me to go forward in life and make amends for what I've done. Picking up with that. That at least is true, said Mr. Lorry. Say no more now. It may be that I shall yet stand your friend if you deserve it, and repent in action, not in words. I want no more words. Mr. Cruncher knuckled his forehead as Sidney Carton and the spy returned from the dark room. Adieu, Mr. Barsad, said the former. Our arrangement thus made, you have nothing to fear from me. He sat down in a chair on the hearth, over against Mr. Lorry. When they were alone, Mr. Lorry asked him what he had done. Not much. If it should go ill with the prisoner, I have insured access to him once. Mr. Lorry's countenance fell. So all that, what Mr. Lorry finds out here is all that Sidney Carton was able to do was make an arrangement to, if Charles Darnay is found guilty on the following day, Sidney Carton can get into the prison to meet with him one time. So Mr. Lorry's countenance fell, it says. That's because this doesn't seem like much. That doesn't seem like that big of a deal. So it doesn't seem like Carton really did anything. Mr. Lorry's countenance fell. It is all I could do, said Carton. To propose too much would be to put this man's head under the axe, and as he himself said, nothing worse could happen to him if he were denounced. It was obviously the weakness of the position. There's no help for it. But access to him, said Mr. Lorry, if it should go ill before the tribunal, will not save him. I never said it would. So Sidney Carton is saying, I don't have a way to save him if he's found guilty. Never said it would. So it's setting up this idea that it's not going to go well and Charles Darnay is not going to be saved. Mr. Lorry's eyes gradually sought the fire. His sympathy with his darling and the heavy disappointment of his second arrest gradually weakened them. He was an old man now, overborne with anxiety of late, and his tears fell. You are a good man and a true friend, said Carton in an altered voice. Forgive me if I notice that you are affected. I could not see my father weep and sit by careless, and I could not respect your sorrow more if you were my father. You are free from that misfortune, however." Stopping there.